Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mike Radick, the driving force behind Voltage Wrestling, and you are listening to the Three Count Podcast with Red Dog.
I'm in fashion, heroic cold.
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring, and I'm your host Clifford Red Dog Miller. That's right, the man that leads you up this mountain called wrestling. You should call me your Sherpa, and by these many episodes I've been saying this, you better be calling me your Sherpa. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. That's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So who's entering the ring today? Well, you can find this man at SCW. You can find this man at HWF. You can find this man at ACW. And you can also find this man at Voltage. He is an MC. He is a booker. He is an owner. He also has his own podcast. He is Mike Radick.
Wow, I could not have done that introduction any better myself. How's it going, man?
Yo, it's going good, man. I'm so glad that you are here on our show, man. So how are you doing?
Well, doing very well. Just got back from a 2-week stint at the Super Bowl for my regular job. The shoot job's got to come first. So, 2-week stint at the Super Bowl. Had a blast. Just a wonderful experience. But glad to be back here in Maryland. Glad to be back home finally, and glad to be here on the Three Count Podcast.
Man, I appreciate it, man. So first question right off the jump. Who is Mike Radick?
Mike Radick is a kid with delusions of grandeur at times. Mike Radick is a guy that's still living his dream and trying to make the most of the time that I have left in the wrestling industry. I've been doing this for about 17, 18 years now. I've been in for a while. I've been in since 2003, and enjoying every minute of it, making the most of every opportunity, and just trying to leave things better than I found it.
Yeah, it's interesting because every time I see you, you're somewhere new in that place.
Yeah.
So we've been at like 3 different promotions. I have seen you as an MC. I have seen you in the commentary booth. I have seen you as a promoter. So it's definitely wild, like seeing you in all facets of like behind the scenes and kind of running around and handling business. I'm just curious, man, like what brought you into the sport?
So the funny story. I'd always wanted to be a pro wrestler. I knew after I graduated high school I was going to pursue it. I just didn't know when and where. We had a school. I'm from Hagerstown, Maryland, so we had a school here in Hagerstown that trained professional wrestlers. And at the time, the group of friends that I had some friends that have gone through that school and didn't, not burying the promotion or anything, just didn't really have a good experience there. So I wasn't particularly fond of going there to start out. But another school had opened up in the South Central Pennsylvania area. And one weekend I heard a friend called me. I was in the middle of eating dinner, and a friend called me saying they're training wrestlers for $200. And that was a steal for training at the time. And I'm sitting there like, $200, I can't lose. And boy, did I lose that day. Boy, so I tell this story to a lot of people. For people who think professional wrestling is going to be this easy thing, I remember going in, and at the time I didn't really work out. I didn't really I didn't take physical fitness seriously. So I'm going into this training session. I ran the ropes about 20 times, and then took about 20 bumps, and then did 20 shoulder rolls. And they had me do this just workout to kind of see where I was at. And I remember getting out of the ring, walking outside, and immediately vomiting. That was my first day of wrestling training. And after that, I was oh, there's no way they're going to let me get back in the ring. And they did. And, they gave me another shot, and, I started, really taking it a little bit more serious, trying to train whenever I could. I think we were up there every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday night, and really just trying to make the most of it. So it all started from there.
I think it's very unique, right? Because I've had people come to me and tell me that, like, pro wrestlers aren't athletes, right? That they're just some dudes who drink beer and, like, and forbid, but touch each other because they're wearing speedos. And I was like, if you've never actually been in a ring and actually taken a bump, you will never know what it really like.
No, you really wouldn't, and I think the people that do and decide not to pursue it, I feel like even if they decide not to pursue it, they still have a newfound respect for it.
Mhm.
It's it's a like it's an athletic line of work. While what we're doing is not particular, like I wouldn't categorize it as a sport. More, I'd probably more so categorize it as a performance. However, it's an athletic performance. It's no different than seeing. Like I don't want to call it gymnastics, but it's no different than seeing um, a fight scene in a movie. The people that do those fight scenes, they train for hours and hours and weeks and months to perfect those things. And I think professional wrestling should be held in the same respect as that. You don't see anybody disrespecting like an action star. Most of the people want to go see their movies, and I think professional wrestlers are the same thing. We're producers, we're choreographers, we're actors. We bring 4 or 5 tools to the table that we have to be able to sit there and produce on the fly.
Yeah. There's
So
there's a lot that goes into it, and then you're just talking about, like, in ring stuff. We're not even in fact talking about the fact that you're your own booker, like your own manager, you're your own, like, you gotta get your own photography done, right? So
yeah,
you end up, like, enhancing your abilities of doing stuff. Like, certain people will go down the avenue of making gear, or other people will go through, becoming professional photographers, videographers, or just mastering how to make musical tracks, right? Or even doing the simple things of, like, making graphic cards. So you have people that you can do all those things. You end up learning how to do all those things. But typically, like, that's a lot of different skills that pro wrestlers have that I feel like a lot of other athletes don't have, right? So, like, even in the pro wrestling world, right? Or not pro,
totally.
pro football. In pro football, like, you have a guy to handle all your stuff, right? Like, you may run your social media account, but you have a cook, you have a strength and conditioning guy, you have your your nutritionist, you have your agent that handles all your contracts. It's me. Like, I'm a team of me. That's who I am.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And like, I also say, these are the skill sets that you learn in this industry. I don't care what skill level or where you are. The skills that you could learn in this industry can help you out outside of this industry. I'll give you a great example of this. One of the things that I did early on to fulfill a need and to make some extra money while I'm out there trying to live my dream, so to speak, is I would create and produce DVDs for the promotions that I was working for early on. One of the things that ended up happening, I had a friend of mine who worked at a television station that was watching one of those DVDs at the station. Somebody walked by and asked whose work it was. He had mentioned, "Hey, yeah, my friend does this." I ended up getting my first job in broadcast television as a result of that. That really kickstarted my career outside of wrestling, and helped me at least have a 9 to 5 that was going to support my wrestling habit, so to speak.
Yes, that is very important. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of stuff that we do for, like, for the sport is just, it's it's obviously for the love of it, right? Because we're not making, like, big bucks on the indie scene, but it's like you said, like, you have that shoot job that helps you get there and to keep supporting your dreams. It's very important to have something that you can kind of rely on while you're able to be flexible and jump around. So
Oh, absolutely. It's good that people realize, hey, if this doesn't work out, you're still getting to live your dream, but take these skills and use them to build your life outside of wrestling. Use them to make money in other avenues. It's you never know where it could lead.
yeah, it was funny because, like, even for me, like, you had mentioned how you're making DVDs, right? Like, if you watch the very first episodes of, like, Now Entering the Ring, or even if you watch the first episodes of the Three Count Podcast debate show, like, I was very shy around the camera and I had to get comfortable. And I knew that, like, if I wanted to cut promos and do them well, like, I would have to be able to be in front of a camera, especially if it's going to be just me cutting these promos. So I would practice and I would use the show as like my way to get better at cutting promos. So
Same here.
You develop everything through it.
No, same here. I remember my first podcast, and this was I want to say 2 weeks before the pandemic, or it might have been the week before the pandemic. I did my very first podcast. We were then called the Podcast Pit. I remember getting on the air and just being really just super nervous. Like, I had been ring announcing at that point for 9-10 years. I'm used to talking in front of a crowd, but when it's just you in the room and you're relying on you to kind of carry the whole thing, and you're not speaking in short, just short little phrases and short little moments. You're literally speaking for a half hour to 45 minutes. It's a little bit different, and you have to train yourself to be able to know how to carry that and carry the show, and know how to segue into other segments, and just really make the broadcast worth watching.
Yeah, no, and then like even from there, right? You're pulling down a video, and then you're learning to edit it and cut it and splice certain segments that you want to put together and make them sound like coherent as well as like just streamlined. So you learn like a lot of, like you said, like a lot of different skills just based off of how you're working it. So I'm always like, I'm flabbergasted about like how far I've come, like myself, just for like the podcast, as well as like just my speaking ability in front of a camera. But then like it transitions, because like you talked about it being a ring announcer, you've been doing it for 9-10 years. You knew how to like to amp up a crowd. For me, like now I've been able to take this and just like energize it even more. And when I get in front of a crowd, like it's just a whole new ball game to it.
Oh, absolutely. This definitely will help with your confidence in front of a crowd, and and just knowing how to speak, and it's like nothing but good can come of it. I will say that.
It's definitely fun, because like looking at like my trainer when he does promo class and watching those guys go and do their first promos in front of a camera, and as soon as like they're practicing and they're like doing everything perfect, because like the crowd is there, right, and there's people are watching, so they're getting into it emotionally. They're like, yeah, and I'm coming to get you this Saturday. Right, and as soon as you hit the record button, you're like, all right, we're recording. They're like,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like all that energy, all that pent up aggression, just out the window as soon as we hit the record button. Like it's so funny. But then like I've seen a couple of the students, like as Sicken has worked with them, come around and come to life, and then like we've helped edit and like change things and like mold the way that they want to be, and then just watch them blossom from there. So it's definitely cool to watch like them have to put that in, and then utilize their characters.
One of the things that I used to do in that instance, like I remember when I started, this is like right after my divorce in 2018, I started getting back out there and trying to like really hit up every promotion I possibly could to kind of keep myself busy. One of the things I did to get myself better at cutting, the promos, kind of hyping up the shows, which is one of the things I did. I would go live. Like I would just go live and make like, because if you go live, it's one take. You can't afford to mess up. It puts that pressure on you, and you start reacting in the moment rather than thinking, oh, hey, I can do this again. Like you start reacting in the moment, and you end up getting better at doing, doing what you're doing. I think that live environment really helps when you're trying to cut promos or hype things up. It's a really good help.
Yeah, going live and like doing a show live. I've been blessed to be joined by Chaz, who is just a notorious for just being a serious mouthpiece and just talking trash. But with our debate show, we've been able to kind of like grow, and him and I have been able to like just enjoy like the environment that we have. But it's also hard because like I'm always trying to watch the chat to see like who's like dropping in and saying whatever they want to say, and include that in our show, especially this year, because this is the brand new season for season 3 that we're doing. And it is tough to be able to juggle this conversation with the conversation that's being talked about over here, and like tell people like, all right, yeah, we're having this fun back and forth get together. So I definitely feel like it's beneficial to be able to go live. And you're right, doing a one take and knowing that you're gonna slip up, like just trying to minimize that as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, man, because you are in such a unique position. Like, you get to see like wrestling from all aspects of life, right? I'm just curious, like, as a promoter, uh, what is the best way for an upcoming wrestler to just kind of come in and be like, "Hey, I'm such and such"?
Honestly, I say this a lot because as a promoter, you get thousands of emails from guys that are wanting to come in and work. I'll be honest with you. I've had so many emails because it gets to a point where it's almost impossible to read them all. And some slip through the cracks. I have had, and this is over the years of promoting. I've ran 3 different promotions. I started promoting my 3rd year into wrestling. So this was back in like 2007 when it was kind of the heyday of the indies. You had the talent pool in the mid 2000s. For people that weren't around, it was phenomenal. This is when you still had Danielson and Colt Cabana and just a lot of the who's who of professional wrestling still in the indies and still cutting their teeth and making their way, but they were still really damn good. And then the underneath of that, like you had your, like at the very bottom of that, you had your like Rhett Titus's and your I don't know if anybody remembers Pelly Primo, and you had the best around, just these guys that were just super talented. And I'll say the same thing then that I said that I'll say now. The best way to get booked or to get noticed, show up and ask, how can I help? How can I help? What can I do to help this promotion? That's the best way to get your foot in the door. How can I help with the ring? And the main reason I say that is because, these are the things promoters have a lot of guys. And I'm very fortunate not to have this problem because I have a very good group of people that I book. Riot City and just that whole camp that Sicken runs is just a group of professionals like most will never know about. Like these guys, they show up and basically they are the integral part of the show. People don't realize not only are they wrestling on the cards, but they're setting up the rings. They're providing all of the logistics to make the show happen. These guys are literally the workhorses of this area. I'll die on that hill. There's nobody that's going to outwork a guy or outwork somebody from that Riot City camp. But these guys will show up and they'll help out with the ring. And as a result, these guys get bookings very quickly and very fast and get to work very talented guys as a result. That's the best way that you can get your foot in the door. Just trying to establish and provide value to the promotion. It's not the only way, obviously. There's going to be guys that hit you up via email, and it might be somebody that's like, you take a look at them and they're really talented and like, boy, I got to bring those guys in, or I got to bring that guy in. But a lot of the times, 9 times out of 10, your best bet is to show up and help out, because that right there will not be forgotten. People think that it is. It will not be forgotten. Trust me, the promoter appreciates it.
And there you go, guys. So if you guys want to get booked on these shows, just show up. Just show up and help. And it's something that I've heard and I read and I've come to learn. Just because you set up that first show does not mean that you're guaranteed a spot on that show, but it could be something that shows up down the line. So
absolutely, there's guys that have shown up 3 or 4 shows for me, and finally I got a spot for them, and then they end up knocking it out of the park on that first spot, and then they end up having a spot for me for every show that I run. It's happened so many times before, especially in the days when I was running Fight. When we were running Fight in that television show with Fight Pro Wrestling down in Rockville, or even when we were running in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, there'd be a lot of guys that would show up, and something would happen where somebody couldn't make it, somebody got caught in snow, or had a family emergency or something like that, and we needed somebody to fill that spot fast, and that guy was there and was able to come on, do his thing. It happens. It happens more often than you think. Or maybe we need an extra match for something. It happens more often than you think. So the key thing, if you got a free weekend, look for a show nearby in your area and show up and see how you can establish value, because I can guarantee you it will not be forgotten.
Facts. So I'm curious, man. Like we talking about like all the best parts of being a promoter and like having people just come and show up and hang out with you, and then you find spots. I'm curious, man. What's the worst part about being a promoter?
The worst part, uh, the being a promoter is it's a thankless job. It really is. I and I don't say that as and I don't mean that as a negative at all. Like I love promoting. However, it is a very thankless job. It You got to really love the business to promote shows. I can't think of any better. I can't think of any other way to throw money away quicker than being a promoter in professional being a promoter in professional wrestling. There's so many logistics and things. Like case in point, right before I left for Los Angeles, we were supposed to have a show in Waynesboro that ended up getting canceled because of logistics and things falling through at the very last minute. How Pennsylvania is when you're running the show, you need a doctor up there. Our doctor happened to come down with COVID, and and this was 48 hours from the show, and we could not find a replacement fast enough to make that show happen. So we ended up having to cancel a show that was damn near sold out, which is heartbreaking.
Right.
If you're in my position, especially when you have some pretty big names on the show. I had Rhino on the show, had a couple of really big indie guys, and this was going to be a show. I'm sure of it. Had it gone forth and gone forward, we probably would have put on our best show that night. And I believe that's saying something with the lineup that we've had at Voltage Wrestling. However, things happened and it fell through, and it is the worst feeling in the world to have that happen. However, when you love the business, you bounce back. You learn from it, and you do better next time, and try to make the best of the situation. And that's what we're going to do. You're going to see some announcements tomorrow to make up for that, and we'll be back rocking and rolling like we always have been.
Yeah, it's funny because I know and you mentioned Riot City and their training complex. I remember hearing the story of Ian just kind of like coming out of the crowd and working a match, and like the crowd really getting behind him. And I think that this speaks, one, to opportunities that you're able to give whenever you just show up and like help, but two, it also, as much as it is a thankless, as you said, it's a thankless job. No, very much I want to say thank you, because I did hear about that moment. I was like, I'm very proud of him, because I was definitely excited to see that he got that opportunity.
Yeah, and he got the, he ended up wrestling Corey Bush that night, and we put him little inside baseball. We put him in a position to succeed on that particular night, and he was in a very good spot on the show. Corey, the professional that Corey Bush is, took very good care of him. I couldn't have asked for anything better to come with that. It was, they both did their jobs to perfection, and that's all you can ask for as a promoter.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So I'm curious though, like being that you've been in this for a long time, man, what's been one of the hardest lessons that you've had to learn in the wrestling industry?
You're not going to be liked by everybody. As a promoter, you're not going to be liked by everybody. There's always going to be somebody that has a bad story about you. There's always going to be somebody that's coming at you. There's always going to be somebody that wants what you have and will go out and try to take what you have. It is your job as a promoter and as the driving force behind something to rise above that. It's hard sometimes. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been able to rise above it all the time. We all have our moments. I am a very emotional, I'm a very passionate person, I should say, about what I do. So, there's some times where you take that stuff kind of personally. However, especially with this venture, we've had curveballs upon curveballs upon curveballs thrown at us since last June. And a lot of that has to do with the success that we've had with this. Dare I say, our first show, I knew we were going to be successful a week out from the show, I didn't realize how successful we would be. To have the crowd that we had on our first event was unbelievable, with 3 other events happening in the same town that weekend. It was just a great, great feeling. And, as a credit to the other events, all of those other events drew very well too. It was just a testament to professional wrestling and how popular it is in that I-81 corridor. And, it's that weekend, and, when we had a show in the same town running the same night, I could have, just packed my ball up and went home and just canceled the event. But we went forward. Everybody was successful. We all did very well. Every promotion in that area. And, at the end of the day, you realize there's enough out there for everybody to succeed.
Yeah, I feel like I hear a lot where like people are like, and it goes to like to the talent side, really. Like if you work here, you're not supposed to work there, and if you work there, you can't work at this place. And I hear that a lot. But as you just mentioned, like wrestling is so massive, is loved by so many people that everybody can have a chance to succeed in like everywhere among like different promotions and stuff like that. So my question really comes to me asking you now, what kind of advice would you have for wrestlers / promoters coming up?
Basically get out there and focus on you and do what you need to do to make your product successful. I know it's hard sometimes. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't. And that's advice that I have to take sometimes. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Focus primarily on what you're doing, and you will succeed. If somebody's coming at you, just put your foot on the gas even harder and work harder. It is the best advice that I could possibly give you. Also, constantly write down things as you think of them that will make your promotion better. Notice what you're doing wrong, and try and go out, like figure out ways to fix those things. That's one thing about this time around. Again, I had told you before, I had ran a promotion in the past called Fight, and Fight, while it was very well produced, we had very good talent. We didn't do so well. We didn't do so well in attendance, with the exception of a show here and there. Having a year or two in retrospect to think about all the mistakes that I made with Fight, we were able to, come out of the gate and correct those mistakes this time around with Voltage. And, that doesn't happen if I'm not learning from my mistakes. So constantly point out your mistakes, learn from them, improve, and fix them.
I like that. I like that a lot. And so let's talk about it, right? You are, the owner and promoter of Voltage, which is brand new. But I remember when you guys actually had your first event and you guys had your tournament that was going on. And our champion, who is Sicken, who is actually currently out, but, get well, bro, because I know like you're going to. You're going to rip it when you get back. But talk to me about like the evolution of Evolve, like how it got started and then what makes it the juggernaut that it's becoming.
So Voltage Wrestling, it was actually, the idea got started the year before. We were actually supposed to run a show in 2020. The idea got started when I had started my podcast, and I was working under a studio. And one of the first things that the studio asked, because the person running the studio had a lot of people come in that wanted to do podcasts but didn't really have a long-term vision. Me, I was quite the opposite. I knew what I wanted to do a year from now, what I wanted to do 2 years from now. My goal was very simple. It was to, doing this podcast was to kind of boost my profile in my area. I was kind of looking to be like the Mean Gene of, the I-81 corridor, kind of, going out, announcing, cutting interviews with people, try to boost their profiles. And then after a while, open a promotion and really kind of build my brand from there. I wanted to be like kind of the authority of wrestling in like the Hagerstown area, so to speak. So part of that, I explained to them what I wanted to do, and as we started getting down the line, we started talking about the concept of what this promotion would look like. We didn't even have a name for it yet. But I wanted to run something. The original idea was something along the lines of like Quentin Tarantino produced wrestling. We haven't gotten quite there yet, but you're going to start to see some of that here soon. Mainly due to the pandemic, we kind of got around to just getting the cast of characters together and getting the tournament and getting the promotion established. But the original concept was supposed to be if something that looked like Quentin Tarantino produced wrestling. We started kind of laying out what this was going to be, who was going to be involved, and basically where we were going to debut. And with COVID going on, we were basically relegated to do an outdoor show. I don't know if you've seen any footage from our show. We basically ran in the patio area of an Irish pub in West Virginia. When we got in there, it doesn't look like much when you see it. There's a stage in the back. It's got there's like a yard area, and then there's a patio. We kind of set the ring somewhere to the left of the stage and really dressed the place up a bit, and tried to make it like an environment where it almost looked like a fight club, like an outdoor fight club. It was a cool feel. I think the venue added so much to it, and off to the races we were. Originally I'm only expected to do maybe 75 people for this. If I had 75 people for that first show, I would have been happy. We ended up doing double that and then some. So I couldn't have been any happier with the result that I was.
Yeah, and then like you said, like the cast of talent that you had around with Big Trouble Ben Bishop, obviously the Savage Gentleman, Victor Benjamin was there, Sicken was there, Miles Millennium was there. Like you had like just these the four unique individuals around each other. And then obviously you tore it down with this massive tournament. Corey Bush obviously being included in that too as well. Like the growth of CM Voltage, like continuing to evolve and change and get better. And like you said, it's going to be differently produced here in the future. It's cool to watch. So I definitely applaud you for like the work that you guys are putting in.
Yeah, and then it's not to even say. We've had a couple of curveballs thrown our way during this whole entire process, where it's made us switch up a lot of the things that we do. Again, we're no longer affiliated with the studio now. We're out on our own producing this little by little, and for how things abruptly ended there. We're doing really well, I think. As far as like rebounding and continuing to move forward and put out a decent product. But that kind of goes with promoting. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you could be expecting a light, you could be expecting a right and then get a left. It's just you got to have the ability to roll with the punches, and I think we've done that pretty well so far.
So speaking of rolling with the punches, I'm very curious, man. Because we do know that there's some things that happen, but I need to know. I need one do and one don't of the locker room so I don't get punched in the mouth.
I don't think anybody's getting punched in the mouth in our locker room. Our locker room, I've heard people say this, our locker room is probably one of the most chill locker rooms that you could find yourself in. Everybody gets along. Everybody wants to see everybody succeed. Yeah, nobody's punched them. I can't even imagine a scenario. I can't imagine a scenario where that would happen. But as far as do's and don'ts of the locker room, I'm due, and you probably heard this before, I'm really big on everybody kind of just introducing themselves to everyone else, just shaking everybody's hand. I think that's just it's basic courtesy. That's the one thing I will say. As far as don'ts, like the only thing I would say, you got to remember you don't get yourself over, somebody gets you over. A lot of guys don't understand that in the beginning. And once they do, and once the light bulb clicks, things are a lot easier for them. But, don't try to get yourself over. Like, have somebody get you over, that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. So those are like all my heavy hitting questions, but we do got to get into the second best segment of this podcast. You're probably wondering to yourself, what's the first? That's easy. It's the Red Dogs Power Rankings that you can find every Sunday on our debate show. I say it enough. I feel like I repeat that all the time. But this is the 3 Count Podcast 10 Count Questions. And Mr. Radick, this is how it works. I'm going to fire off 10 questions at you rapid fast. And whatever's your answer, that's your answer.
All right.
So we're going to put on the imaginary timer for add pressure. Bing! And here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
SmackDown.
Favorite movie?
Pulp Fiction.
Yes. Would you rather be a promoter or an MC?
Oh, promoter.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Sonic or Mario?
Sonic.
Favorite submission move?
Sharpshooter.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Favorite podcast?
The 3 Count Podcast, of course.
Right? It's right here.
It's right here.
And right up top. Right off the top.
You can't say your own podcast, so it's a 3 Count Podcast.
Listen, anytime anybody, I'm a mark for myself. I will tell people the 3 Count Podcast, followed by the Joe Rogan Experience. I tell everybody that. That's how it goes down. Nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
Ernie Osiris.
Yes, indeed. And then last but not least, my favorite question asked every single person that comes on here. Favorite curse word?
Fuck.
That's right. A good F-bomb is what you need in this life.
Gotta have them F-bombs, man.
I tell everybody, I was like, if you haven't seen the history of the F word on YouTube, it is the greatest 2 minutes and 39 seconds that you're ever going to see. So I encourage everyone, go look up that video. But last but not least, the only thing I need from you, Mr. Radick, is let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
You could find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Ratick Wrestling. You can find me on Instagram at Mike Radick. That is MikeRatick. You can find me on Twitter at the same handle. I also have a website, MikeRadick.com. You can also find me or find information about Voltage Wrestling at VoltageWrestling.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram under This Is Voltage or Voltage is Wrestling. Look us up. You will find us.
And there you go. You guys have it. They just gave you all the handles. But you know what that means. That means like every good part of a wrestling match, we got to take this home because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents.
He is home.
And I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up this mountain called wrestling. But like every good Sherpa, which by now you probably should be calling me, you got to have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. And that's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. And you see him right next to me. He's right there, Mike Radick himself.
Can I go ahead and make a few more cheap plugs here?
Oh, you can make all the cheap plugs you want.
Also, a couple other wrestling promotions you need to support. Honorary Wrestling Federation, ran by Matt Silks. Adrenaline Wrestling out in the Baltimore area and the Hagerstown area. In addition to Voltage Wrestling, there's World Domination Wrestling Alliance out in Martinsburg. Just a couple of promotions that you can support, and you can pay your hard-earned money to see great talent at all of those promotions. Hope to see you out of the show here soon. Keep up with my calendar at MikeRadick.com. I'm going to be updating that here soon and getting everything up to date. So we hope to see you out in some shows.
Indeed. So y'all heard the man speak, and you know what that means? We got to go. So, you know what to do. You tune into the next episode, okay? You wait for this outro. You wait for this episode to end. You wait for the outro, and then you choose another episode to listen to.
That's what you should do.
What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want you to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3Count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3 Count Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3 Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3 Count Podcast also has merchandise. Oh! At prowrestlingtees.com/the 3 Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So, show us some support, please.